So it's been about 18 months since I've been debt free, and it's been pretty awesome. April of 2019, my wife and I, we got married, and one of the first things that we did was we sat down together, we figured out how much do we have and how much debt do we have. And we calculated our debt, and we were somewhere around $120,000. A majority of the debt was student loans. And I remember just sitting there looking at that amount and thinking, how the heck are we gonna pay this off? Like, are we ever going to pay this off? Because debt was so normal in my life. I grew up with debt being very normal. I thought it was just a part of everyone's lives. But when I talked to a few of my friends here and there and I find out that they're not in debt, I was like, wait, I thought everyone was in debt. And now majority of people are, but long story short, by the end of 2020, which was one of the hardest years for my business, somehow we managed to be debt free. And so in this video, I want to share 7 things that has helped us get out of debt within a very quick time frame. And this video really isn't to brag about how quick we got out or how much we got to pay off. It's none of that, right? It's really just to encourage those that are trying to get out of debt. And hopefully this gives you some perspective and some insight and help you on your journey to becoming debt free. So if that sounds interesting, definitely stick around. Also, if you're in real estate or own a business and understand how to leverage debt, this video is not going to be really relevant for you. It may be helpful, but this video is just for a general message to the general audience for those who are in consumer debt, also known as bad debt. Number 1 is to not invest, right? How ironic, right? Because I always tell people to invest, right? Whether it's into the stock market or if you want to be a little risky, go into the cryptocurrency space. But if you're trying to get out of debt, I think it's so important to pause on all forms of investments and focus on, narrow down on just paying off your debt really, really quick first, and then focusing on investing afterwards. You know, what I used to do before marriage while I was still in debt was that everything that I made after expenses, bills, and all that stuff, I would save half of it and I would invest the other half. But the problem with that was my debt interest rate was much higher. We're talking about credit card rates. And so my investments were growing slowly, but my debt was racking up a lot more. Not only that, because I wasn't able to pay everything off in full, I was racking up more debt because I was still using my credit card. So what I should have done was cut off investing completely and just focused everything on my debt. Also, you may have experienced this before, but when the market is not doing too well, right, and you have this enormous amount of debt behind you, this weight behind you, you start to get overwhelmed and stressed out, and really starts affecting your relationship with people, the way you speak, the way you think, just your habits overall. Just you as a person don't become a good person. But now, being in a position of being debt free, I'm investing majority of the money that I make. And when the market isn't doing too well, I'm not stressed out because I don't have any liabilities or responsibilities other than, bills and rent and all that stuff. Some people argue saying, hey, the market return will outweigh and outrun the interest rate on my credit card or this loan that I pulled out. And I completely understand, I get that. But if you're in this constant cycle of being in debt, knowing that you should be out, just pause on it. Pay off your debt. It'll take maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know how many months it takes. Just get that out of the way and invest as much as you want. Number 2, you don't hear too often, but do not feel guilty spending money on your non-negotiables as long as it's tied to your income. Now, this is going to be different for everybody depending on what you do, but personally for myself, my non-negotiables were coffee and cafes, right? I never cared about how much I spent on coffee. I never cared about how much I spent at cafes, because the amount of work and productivity that I could achieve within a 4 to 8 hour work period in a cafe setting was worth it. For example, there was a time and period where I would go to a coffee shop every single day, and I would spend anywhere between $10 to $20 depending if I get food or not. Now, that's anywhere between $300 to $600 a month. For some people, that could be outrageous and that could sound ridiculous, right? But the amount that I spent at cafes was necessary in order for me to make the income that I make today. Yes, technically I could go to a library, or I could go to a park, or I could work at home, or there's a lot of places you can work for free. You can make your own coffee too. But for some reason, there's something about a cafe setting that helps me become more productive. I don't get distracted as easily. I just want to work. I'm just in a completely different zone. And so that's why it's worth it for me, which is why it's a non-negotiable. I also know a social media influencer who spent $100 a week on her hair. To me, when I hear that sounds crazy. lazy, right? That's why I wear hats, because I don't want to worry about my hair. But I get that, right? That's a non-negotiable for her because she has a huge online presence. She's always in front of the camera, whether it's creating content or being at meetings. And that's what allows her to make a six-figure business or maintain a six-figure business every single year. And so for her, she can afford the $100 a week. It's totally fine. It's a non-negotiable. But again, it has to be tied with your income. So if there are things that you don't need in your life that's not going to help you make more money, then cut it out. Which leads to number 3, you got to cut back. We hear this all the time, right? Just cut back, cut back. Whether it's the amount of times you eat out, or the amount you spend on clothes, or the amount of money you spend on entertainment, you just got to cut back, and you got to make that a habit. Also, another thing with cutting back is to get rid of things you do not need. So look around the home, whatever you don't need, throw it away. I think clearing out your house, at least for me, that's what we did in the beginning. We threw out a lot of things we didn't need. We filtered out a lot of it. And what that does, it creates more of a clear mind. It also creates a less scarcity mindset. The reason why people hoard onto things is because they have this scarcity mindset of like, I need this. This has to be here. But we haven't worn that jacket in like 2 years. There's a lot of things in our home that we haven't touched, in years. And so a lot of those things we throw away. So not only cut back on your spendings, but cut out stuff and things in your life. All right, we are halfway there. Number 4, it's going to be the best one, and that is to stop buying stuff you do not need, right? We hear this all the time, but let me share from my experience, right? I remember there used to be a time where I used to buy a ton of shoes, a ton of clothes, just a ton of stuff that I really did not need in my life, but specifically clothes. And one of the reasons why is, now looking back, I get why I did that, was because I wanted to feel like I belonged. I wanted to feel accepted. And I think oftentimes people buy things they don't need because they want to feel validated and approved, right? Whether that is a new phone, whether that is a new shoe, whether that is a new something. Like I wanted people to look at me and be like, wow, those are nice shoes. Whoa, those are nice clothes. Whoa, they're all in the trash now. They're all gone now. Right now, my wife and I, we live in an apartment, and we've pretty much been renters all of our lives, right? Both of our parents never owned a home. They lived in apartments, so we're so used to the apartment rent life. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I actually think it's really comfortable. But because my wife and I, we grew up as renters all of our lives, our desire, our dream was to become a homeowner one day. So once we got out of debt, we looked into houses. We went on Redfin, Zillow, checked out homes. We went to open houses. And although my wife and I, we are debt free right now, even till this day, like that habit still carries on with me, right? Like I look at these homes and I'm like, do I really need that? Like I want that home. Like, yeah, maybe we can afford it, but do we really need it? Because am I buying that home to fulfill a personal need, to prove somebody something, which is nobody, right? Or is it because I really need it? So that's something that my wife and I were still working on, and we're trying to figure out, like, do we really need the home? And if we don't, then we're not going to, right? We're going to continue renting, live where we live, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Number 5 is to start a side gig or a side hustle or side business that can bring in extra cash flow. Now, this is a tricky one because most people cannot do that, right? What I mean by that is the cost of entry is free. There's no barrier, right? Like anyone can start a business, anyone can start anything today, right? But the question is, are they going to be successful at it? Are they going to be good at it? Because for most people, they may be better off just getting a second job or picking up more hours at their current job. But if you can bring in an X amount of cash flow every single week consistently, that will definitely help you pay off your debt much, much quicker. Even if you can reduce it by a couple of months or even a couple of years, that's amazing. Personally, for myself, my main source of income was my screen printing business. So I had a service business, but in 2020, you guys know what happened. Things went horrible. Like it was like the worst year for my business. So I was trying to figure out how can I create extra cash flow, income. That's when I started my YouTube channel that brought in extra cash flow. I also did this Amazon review thing. It was very tedious, a lot of work, But it was worth it, right? It brought in extra cash flow. Totally fine. I don't recommend it for anybody. I don't think you can do it anymore. But if you have a specific skill set, knowledge, or talent where you can monetize it and share it online or to the world, I highly encourage you to do that, right? Like, I rather work 100 hours for myself rather than 40 hours for somebody else, right? Do you really want to work more hours for your boss to help your boss make more money, but you just make a little bit more? Or would you rather spend more hours, invest more hours into your own craft, your skill, and your thing, and have it as your own? Think about it, try it. You never know what will happen until you try, right? Now, that leads us to number 6, and that is to say yes to everything, right? This is regarding to anything that makes you money, right? So let's just say you're trying to get out of debt and you have your day job, and online you see some opportunity, right, where you can make extra cash flow. Say yes to that, right? Maybe there's a volunteer work where they'll pay you like minimum wage. Say yes to that. Every opportunity you see, say yes. Someone wants to buy your thing, say yes to that. Like when I was working at my restaurant job, anytime a server called in sick or couldn't make it, I'd try to be that first person to be like, hey, I'll fill in for you. I'll be there. Even if that meant me working an entire day, because I knew that working a couple hours will help me pay off my debt a lot quicker or even save up for my wedding right at that time. Like my screen printing business, typically when I get smaller orders that are just not worth my time, I say no. I decline those orders. But because our goal after marriage was to be debt-free as fast as possible, I said yes to every order. It took so much time, but it was worth it, right? Because when you say yes to a lot of small things, it all adds up later on in the grand scheme of things. Also, because I said yes to everything, I was being very productive with my days and being very mindful of my schedule, right? Because as you start this debt-free journey, you're building on momentum. And the goal is to build that momentum up and up and up. But the hardest thing is to sustain that momentum. But by saying yes to everything and a lot of things, you're able to sustain that momentum, keep that momentum going up until you become debt free, until you pay off your last debt. That is when you can start to relax just a little bit, right? That is when you can start saying maybe to certain things, and then you'll eventually start saying no. Last but not least, filter out your Instagram, right? The first thing that I did in this whole journey after marriage and all that was I unfollowed a ton of people. Now you're probably thinking like, Eddie, how is unfollowing people going to make me more money and get out of debt free quicker? I'll share all that towards the end of the video. But what I did was I unfollowed a lot of my friends because I didn't want to see what they were doing, where they were going, what they were buying, because by looking at those things, it's going to make me desire and want the same things. And so because I was trying to stay focused on this debt-free journey, I unfollowed them and I followed people that I aspired to be, that influenced me in a positive way, people I looked up to. So anytime I was on Instagram, I was feeling motivated and encouraged and inspired instead of feeling like, dang, I wish I was there. Oh, I should go there. Oh, we should go eat that. I was trying to avoid all those frictions. And it's not like you're unfollowing them forever. You're just temporarily unfollowing them. And if you really want to follow them back, you can after you're debt free. Even for myself, like I don't remember who I unfollowed, and it's not like it's affecting my life either. And it's kind of nice because you're kind of starting all over again, refresh. But number 7 goes beyond just filtering out your Instagram followers and your feed, right? The main picture, the big picture, is that when you begin this debt-free journey, right, you have to stay focused. You are at A and you're trying to get to B. And during that journey, right, there are going to be so many distractions, so many people, so many voices that are going to be tugging you, and you're going to question your journey, like, am I doing this? Is it the right thing? But you have to stay focused. And in order for you to stay focused, you need to filter things out of your life. But once you have a clear vision of the road and the journey that is ahead of you, of paying off your debt, and you see your destination of becoming debt-free, all of a sudden you choose to stop investing and choose to focus down on paying off your debt. All of a sudden you don't feel guilty about spending on your non-negotiables. You will start to cut back on spending, and not only cut back on spending, but cut things and stuff out of your life. You will stop buying stuff that you do not need in your life. If you choose to start a side business, you're going to try to figure out how to make it work because you are so determined to create extra cash flow to pay off your debt quicker. You will start to say yes to everything willingly, joyfully, gladly. And last but not least, yes, you will start to unfollow people, and you'll filter out your Instagram, and you will not feel bad for unfollowing them because you know that it is necessary short term in order to get to your destination. I truly believe that how you think is so much more important than how much you make. You can make a lot of money, but if you don't have the proper knowledge, you could still end up broke, right? At the same time, you could be somebody who doesn't make a lot of money, but if you have the proper knowledge, you could still end up on top. So that's why the 7 things that I shared was more based off of like your habits and the way you think, because I could create a video on like practical ways to make more money. But most people, when they watch that kind of video, they don't follow through afterwards because they don't have the right knowledge or the right thinking or the right foundations to begin their debt-free journey. Maybe later down the road, I'll create a different video talking about different income streams and even my personal income streams. But hopefully this video was helpful. If you're trying to get out of debt, just know it's a long process for some. It's a short process for some. Don't focus on others, just focus on you and your personal journey. Have a strategy, have a plan, be intentional, and stay focused. But that'll be it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave it down below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Over. Good night, good morning, adios.